Admiral Drax stood alone on the observation deck of the Vigilant, the flagship of the Imperial Border Fleet, staring into the endless black. The viewport shimmered with the faint glint of distant stars, each a frozen beacon in the void. But nothing in all of known space had prepared him for what the sensors were now screaming. The alarms were quiet but insistent, an almost imperceptible vibration under his boots. He adjusted the sleeve of his uniform, gripping the railing as though its cold steel could anchor him against the rising tide of dread. "Sir," Lieutenant Kara's voice was tight over Cum's, brittle as ice. "You're going to want to see this." Drax turned to the holographic display flickering in the center of the deck. It painted a three-dimensional map of the patrol sector, a lattice of dots representing the Empire's ships. Normally, this quadrant of space was quiet, nothing more than empty lanes, trade corridors, and mining outposts. Tonight, the lattice pulsed with life. Then abruptly, one by one, the dots vanished. He frowned. The sensors insisted the ships had disappeared. Not destroyed, not cloaked, simply gone. "Check the registry," Drax ordered, his voice calm despite the tightening knot in his chest. "Anything anomalous in the scan?" "Nothing," Kara replied. Her hands hovered over the controls as though daring the unknown to touch her. No signatures, no energy output, not even a trace of propulsion. "Admiral, it's like the ships just never existed." Drax felt a shiver run up his spine. The silence of space had a weight now, dense and accusing. He remembered the old saying his grandfather had drilled into him during the colony wars. Space remembers. Humans remember. Always. Perhaps, he thought, the stars had finally remembered something that the humans themselves had long since forgotten. He focused on the readings again. A point of light had appeared at the edge of the sensor range. At first, it seemed like a star, distant and insignificant. Then it moved smooth, deliberate, impossible. It left no signature, no energy trace, and yet it traversed light years in minutes. "Open a channel," Drax said, the words tasting bitter in his mouth. "All frequencies. Full spectrum. Standard hail." The bridge crew obeyed, but the reply was silence, stretched long enough to feel like an insult. They tried again, and again. No answer, only the cold echo of space pressing against their hull. "Admiral," Kara's voice faltered. It's too fast. Nothing we know moves like that. Not even the quantum-class interceptors, nothing." Drax felt the weight of centuries of human ingenuity pressing against him. They had mapped thousands of light years, cataloged trillions of stars, tamed gravity wells, and built engines that tore the fabric of reality. But this was something beyond their reckoning. And yet, he could not turn away. He gripped the railing tighter, letting his mind wander to the prayer he had long since stopped speaking aloud. Not for himself, not for the Empire, but for his fleet, scattered across this border like fragile seeds in a storm. "If you are there, keep them. If you are there." The thought trailed off, unspoken, but it anchored him as nothing else could. Then it began. One by one, ships blinked out. The first, a scout frigate, vanished before the sensors could even analyze the anomaly. The crew's comms went silent mid-transmission, their last words a garbled echo. Drax's chest tightened. His voice remained steady. "Log the losses, track the pattern. Maintain formation." Another went, and another. Each disappearance was like a strike against his heart, but he did not flinch. Humans had survived worse. They had stared death in the eye on 1,000 battlefields and refused to kneel. And they would do it again, even now, against a threat that made no sense. "Sir, it's broadcasting something." Kara's voice broke through the mechanical hum of the bridge. The message was a single phrase, flickering in a static-laced transmission. "Humanity remembers." Drax's stomach turned. There was no signature, no ship, no system code, nothing to trace. Only the words, sharp and deliberate, carrying weight beyond language. He felt something awaken deep in his chest, a sense of recognition he could not explain. Humanity remembers, he repeated under his breath. He had fought countless battles, stared down the void's indifference, and yet this was something different. It felt personal. Not an attack, not a war. It was an acknowledgement, a reckoning. The bridge fell silent, each officer caught in the same private storm. They were soldiers, trained to react, to calculate, to execute, but nothing in their manuals covered being erased, one, by a presence that could not be measured. Drax's eyes shifted to the viewport. The light at the edge of the sector pulsed again, then expanded, stretching tendrils of energy across the void. Ships blinked and vanished as if plucked from reality by an unseen hand. Not luck, he thought, the words tasting like iron in his mouth. Someone wanted them to live, and someone wanted them gone. The deck shuddered as a subtle vibration ran through the ship. Faint but insistent, like the heartbeat of the void itself, Drax pressed a hand to the railing, grounding himself. He knew fear. He had courted it in every battle, stared it down. But this was different. This was awe, threaded with terror. "Prepare all defensive grids," he ordered, even though he knew nothing could match whatever was out there. "Initiate full alert. Evac protocols ready, and keep recording everything. Every reading, every movement. We are going to understand this." Kara hesitated. "Admiral, there's nothing to target. Not a ship, not a signature, nothing." Drax's jaw tightened. "Then we observe. We survive. Humanity always survives. Remember that." He looked at the viewport again, the light at the edge of sensor range growing, stretching, and swallowing the stars one by one. His chest ached, but he did not turn away. Humans had faced the impossible before. They had crossed deserts where no life could exist, battled predators that dwarfed cities, and survived the vacuum of space against odds that would have crushed lesser species. And now, even here, against a force that had no name, no record, no precedent, they would stand. Humanity remembers. Drax's hand hovered over the comms. He wanted to speak, to rally, to order, but the words would be meaningless. Nothing in his voice could reach what lurked beyond the stars. And yet, a quiet certainty grew in him. Not hope, not optimism, something older, quieter. A belief that even in the face of the incomprehensible, humans could make a difference, that they could endure. That somehow, the unseen threads of fate, or perhaps something divine, had not abandoned them. He turned to the bridge crew, each face pale, eyes wide with the silent terror of watching friends and comrades vanish. "We're still here," he said. The words were simple, unremarkable, but they carried a weight no one could ignore. "And while we breathe, we fight." That is what humans do. Outside, the void stretched endlessly, a canvas of black with scattered stars. The mysterious ship or whatever it was hovered beyond reach, silent, unreadable, perfect in its motion. And yet, Drax felt it watching, aware, judging, remembering. A single thought pierced his mind, fleeting, almost prayer-like. If they remember, what will they demand from us? And then, without warning, another ship blinked out of existence, the echo of its disappearance cutting through the bridge like a scream. Drax gritted his teeth. He had stared into the abyss before. He had faced horrors beyond imagination. But this was different. This was not a battle. This was a reckoning. He pressed a hand to the viewport. Stars scattered like grains of sand across the dark ocean, infinite and indifferent. And somewhere in the deep silence, he could swear he felt a pulse, subtle but real, as though the universe itself had paused to watch. Not luck, someone wanted this to happen. Someone wanted to test us. The comms buzzed faintly, static whispering like distant wind. And then, for the first time, the light at the edge of the sector seemed to align, focusing a beam that reached across the emptiness and touched the heart of the Vigilant. Drax inhaled sharply, his knuckles white against the railing. He knew then that the Empire was in the shadow of something vast, something ancient, and possibly human in its judgment. "Admiral," Kara's voice trembled. "It's pointing at us." Drax nodded, though his stomach churned. Then we face it. The Empire does not retreat. Humanity does not cower. Stand ready. The light flared. The stars blinked. And somewhere in the infinite black, the humans began to pray. The light was not a weapon, not yet, but it was aware. And in the silence between stars, it remembered humanity, in ways no one could yet comprehend. The bridge of the Vigilant was bathed in the cold blue light of the sensors, each readout trembling like a pulse against the void. Admiral Drax did not move from his station, though his body ached with tension. He could feel the emptiness pressing against the hull, a sensation more physical than rational, a gravity of dread, heavier than any planet. Lieutenant Kara's fingers flew over the console, tracing the paths of the missing ships. Each disappearance left a void in the fleet matrix, a blank where life and history had existed just moments before. She swallowed hard. "Sir, it's spreading. The outer squadrons, they're gone." Nothing left. Drax's jaw tightened. His mind raced through every tactic, every countermeasure, every lesson the Empire had taught him since his cadet days. None of it applied here. This was not an enemy. This was a phenomenon. Something alive in a way they could not touch or measure. He pressed his palm to the rail, feeling the vibrations of the ship thrumming beneath him. Humans had a saying, "You survive by knowing the enemy, or by knowing yourself." He had studied the enemy, thousands of species, hundreds of battles. But this was not something to study. There were no patterns, no technology, no behavior that he could exploit. And yet, he felt it something ancient, something patient, something aware. A presence in the dark that was watching, testing, remembering. "Sir," Kara said, her voice brittle, "the outermost patrols, they've vanished entirely. Comms are gone, not destroyed. Not disabled, just gone." Drax exhaled slowly. "That is not an attack," he murmured. "It is a reckoning." He ran a hand over his face, feeling the strain deepen. Humanity had faced impossible odds before. They had carved empires from barren worlds, survived radiation storms that stripped cities bare, and wrestled life from the vacuum itself. But this was something beyond mortality, beyond calculation. "Focus," he said aloud. "We are still here. That means we have an edge somewhere. Find it, track it, understand it." Kara hesitated. "Sir, it's not moving the way we understand movement. Nothing we've charted behaves like this. It slips between quantum states. There's no trail to follow." Drax nodded, lips pressed together. He had expected that. That was why he was a human in command, not a machine. When the universe presented the impossible, humans adapted. They survived where others fell, and they found solutions in places the logical could not see. He strode to the holographic display, leaning over the lattice of ships. "Bring up visual sensors on the nearest fleet cluster," he ordered. "I want every spectrum scanned. Optical, infrared, graviton. Nothing left unobserved." The display flickered, and for the first time, the crew glimpsed the edge of the phenomenon. A shape, vague but unmistakable, hovered beyond the fleet's last known coordinates. It was immense, its form shifting like a mirage. Colors that had no names spilled across its surface. It had no registry, no signature. And yet it exuded purpose. Drax felt a shiver crawl up his spine. Something about it, its focus, its attention, was not random, not chaotic. It knew they were watching. It knew they existed. "Prepare defensive grid protocols," he ordered, though the words sounded hollow even to his own ears. "Point everything at it. And ready evacuation contingencies." Kara's fingers hovered over the controls, hesitating. "Admiral, it's staring. It's like it can see us." Drax's lips twitched in a grim smile. "Then let it see. Humanity does not break at fear. Humanity breaks nothing it has to accept limits." He felt the old tension flare in his chest, the same pressure he had felt before boarding countless ships in hostile systems, before staring down the abyss of alien aggression. Fear, dread, but tempered by clarity. Humans survived because they acted, because they refused to yield, because they turned despair into ingenuity. "Sir," Kara interrupted, pointing at the holographic display. It's moving, faster than before. Approaching the fleet. Drax's chest tightened. The fleet, every ship under his command was visible on the display. Hundreds of vessels. Thousands of lives, all insignificant in the face of this entity, and yet, humanity had always thrived on the impossible. "Open all channels," he commanded. "Attempt communication again. Use every protocol, every language, every logic pattern ever developed. Do not leave silence between us." The bridge filled with static, the sound like distant thunder in a vacuum. Then, clear, deliberate, across all frequencies, "Humanity remembers." Drax felt a cold weight settle over him. The words were not a threat, they were a recognition. Something older than war, older than the Empire itself, was aware of humanity. And now it had reached out. "Sir, it's scanning us," Kara whispered, her voice trembling. Drax nodded slowly. "Then let it scan. Let it understand what it is dealing with. Humanity is not fragile. Humanity is clever. Humanity is relentless." The lights on the bridge flickered as a subtle vibration ran through the hull, faint but insistent, like the pulse of a heartbeat. Drax leaned on the railing, closing his eyes for a moment, letting his thoughts drift. He did not pray often, but in the rare quiet moments before battle, he had learned that the universe had a way of preserving what it deemed worthy. If this is not luck, then it is something else. Someone, something, wants us to survive, and maybe, to witness. The shape and space shifted again. The stars behind it blinked, as if acknowledging its presence. The fleet trembled on the sensors, but remained intact for now. "Admiral," Kara said softly, "it's," pointing at the outer fleets. "They're disappearing faster now." Drax clenched his jaw. He had no words for this. Humanity's ingenuity, bravery, and stubbornness had always been their weapons. And yet here, facing the unknown, they were armed only with courage. And that would have to be enough. He turned to the crew. "Record everything. We do not flee. We do not fight blindly. We observe, we adapt, and we survive. Humanity remembers. And so will we." The bridge fell silent, the crew caught between awe and terror. Outside, the void was no longer empty. The presence lingered, immense and deliberate, a being or an intelligence beyond reckoning. Drax stared at it, letting the weight of centuries of human history settle in his mind. They had endured famine, plague, war, and the vacuum of space itself. They had survived the collapse of stars and the rise of tyrants. And now, confronted with the impossible, they would endure again. The first flashes of the outer fleets vanished completely. Coms sputtered, then went silent. Drax felt the ache of loss, raw and personal, though he had not met many of those aboard the missing ships. Humanity was fracturing in real time, yet its spirit remained unbroken. He swallowed. "All stations, maintain vigilance. The impossible is here, and we will face it." A soft hum filled the observation deck, faint but insistent. The light at the edge of the sector pulsed in response, almost like a heartbeat. Drax felt a chill. This was not a weapon in the conventional sense. This was intelligence, alive and aware, testing humanity. Measuring them, remembering them, he exhaled slowly. "We survive," he whispered. "Not because we are strong, but because we refuse to yield." Somewhere in the dark, the stars seemed to pulse back, subtle and silent, like a reminder that the universe had its own order, and maybe, just maybe, it had a sense of justice, not luck. Someone wanted this to happen. Someone wanted us to see, to endure, to understand. The Vigilant shuddered. The crew felt it. The void itself seemed to lean in, watching, waiting, remembering. Drax's eyes narrowed at the viewport. "Hold your positions, stand ready." Humanity has faced the impossible before, and it will do so again. The light flared, brighter this time, brushing against the outer edge of the fleet. Ships blinked and vanished faster, the space around them rippling like water in a storm. And then, silence. Drax felt the void settle around them. The first strike had passed, but the reckoning was only beginning. Somewhere in the infinite dark, the humans began to prepare. And the universe watched them do it. The impossible had tested the fleet and survived. But now, the Vigilant would face the entity directly, and humanity would be forced to fight not with weapons, but with cunning, courage, and an unbreakable will. The Vigilant shuddered as the vacuum beyond the hull seemed to press in, as if the dark expanse itself had weight. Admiral Drax stood rigid on the bridge, watching the stars bend and ripple under the influence of something he could not name. The rest of the fleet was gone, vanished, in minutes. Entire squadrons had blinked out of existence, leaving the Vigilant alone in a void more oppressive than any battlefield he had ever known. Kara's voice trembled over the comms. "Sir, all outer communications are gone. Even the emergency relay satellites are. Nothing. It's like it erased them before we could even call for help." Drax's jaw tightened. Not luck, he reminded himself again. This wasn't chance. It wasn't miscalculation. Something or someone was testing humanity, and they were doing it deliberately. He could feel the intelligence probing the Vigilant, sensing their readiness, weighing their resolve. "Deploy drones," he ordered. "Visual, sensor, scout everything. I want eyes out there, even if the fleet is gone. We observe first. We react second." Kara hesitated, then activated the drones. Tiny vessels streamed from the hangar bays, shimmering into the void, moving toward the shape at the edge of the sector. On the bridge displays, the shape loomed impossibly large, shifting in form and color like a living kaleidoscope. It had no registry, no signature, no design human minds could comprehend. Yet it radiated intent-focused, patient, knowing. "Admiral, it's responding to the drones," Kara said. "They're not being destroyed. They're analyzing them, absorbing data. It's as if it wants to understand what we are." Drax exhaled slowly. He leaned on the railing, feeling the strain of command tighten his chest. Humans had survived countless impossible odds, but this was different. This was not a conventional enemy. There were no weak points to exploit, no armor to pierce. Their survival would require something else: ingenuity, courage, and an instinct for the unexpected. "Sir," Kara whispered, "it's moving closer. Not attacking, but positioning itself around us. Almost circling." Drax's eyes narrowed. "It wants to see us. To test us." He ran a hand through his hair. "Prepare all defense protocols. Not to fire. Not to engage, but to survive. The first rule of survival is knowing the enemy. This is the enemy." The lights on the bridge dimmed and pulsed faintly in rhythm, with a subtle vibration running through the ship. Drax felt a shiver crawl up his spine. The sensation was alive, like the pulse of some immense creature pressing against the hull, not to destroy, but to observe. "Admiral," Kara said softly, "it's scanning the crew, every reading, every life sign. It's collecting data." Drax swallowed. "It doesn't kill, it understands. It remembers, it weighs." He glanced at the faces of the crew, pale and tense, caught between fear and awe. Humanity was fragile in this moment, yet unbroken. The paradox gave him a strange, grim comfort. "Keep calm," he said. "Observe, record. Humanity has survived worse. We adapt, we endure. And we remember." The drones returned, streaming their data to the bridge. On the display, the shape reacted, folding in on itself, twisting colors and patterns in ways that made human eyes ache. It was intelligent, it was alive, it was beyond reckoning. And yet, somewhere deep in Drax's chest, a spark ignited, a certainty that humans could rise to the occasion, even now. "Sir, it's communicating again," Kara said. The phrase appeared on every channel, glowing with subtle static. Humanity remembers. And yet, it stands alone. Drax's hand tightened on the railing. The words were not a threat, they were recognition, a challenge. Humanity had endured. Humanity had survived. Humanity would endure again. But now, they would have to prove it. Prepare the countermeasures, he ordered. Not to destroy it, but to respond. To adapt. To demonstrate that humanity will not be erased without resistance. He turned to the crew. We are the last fleet. We are the witnesses. And we will survive. Every human aboard this ship is a testament to the ingenuity and courage of our species. Act accordingly. The bridge fell silent, each officer caught in private contemplation. Drax could feel the entity watching, studying, judging. Yet in its observation, there was an unspoken acknowledgement, a recognition that humans were not simply prey, not simply collateral. They were defiant, clever, resilient. Sir, Kara's voice broke the silence. I think it's aware of our emotions. Our fear, our determination. Even our prayers. Drax's eyes softened. He had not spoken aloud in years, but in this moment, he whispered, "Not luck." Someone wanted this to happen. Someone wanted to test us, and perhaps, to guide us. The Vigilant shuddered again, subtle and insistent. Outside, the void pulsed, rippling with energy that defied understanding. The entity's light stretched across the observation deck, brushing against the human crew like a hand that did not touch but felt everything. Drax clenched his teeth. He had faced death countless times, stared down annihilation in its rawest forms, and yet this was different. This was not a battle of weapons. This was a trial of spirit, a test of ingenuity, of courage, of human will. Admiral, Kara's voice was barely audible. It's not attacking, it's observing. It's waiting for something. Drax nodded slowly. Then we show it who we are. Humanity survives not by luck, but by ingenuity, by courage, by the refusal to yield. We are not perfect, but we endure, we adapt, we overcome. And we remember. The light in space pulsed brighter, almost rhythmically, like a heartbeat. Drax felt it through the hull, felt it in his chest, felt it in the marrow of his bones. This was alive. This was intelligence. This was a force older than the Empire itself. And now it had focused its attention on them. The crew of the Vigilant stood at their stations, eyes wide, hearts pounding. Fear was present, yes, but so was determination. Humans had faced extinction before, and each time they had emerged stronger for it. Drax looked to the viewport again. The stars were bending, light twisting and pulsing in impossible ways. And yet, amidst the terror, he felt something else, a quiet, subtle certainty, like the whisper of a hand guiding them through darkness. Not luck, not coincidence, something greater. Stand ready, he said. Observe, record, survive, and remember, humanity does not yield. Humanity does not kneel. Humanity endures. A subtle pulse ran through the ship, faint but insistent. The entity's presence was overwhelming, yet oddly reassuring. It was a test, a reckoning, a challenge. And somewhere deep in Drax's chest, he knew that humans were not only capable of facing it, they might even prevail. The first drones returned, streaming more data. The entity twisted, colors shifting faster, almost curiously. It seemed fascinated, intrigued. Perhaps after all, the humans would meet the challenge on their own terms. Drax's eyes narrowed at the viewport. Humanity had survived millennia of impossible odds. They had crossed deserts, oceans, and stars. They had faced predators and tyrants alike. And now, confronted with the incomprehensible, they would endure again. Somewhere in the silent pulse of space, the entity paused. And for the first time, Drax sensed not hostility but expectation. Not luck, not coincidence. Someone, something, is guiding us to prove ourselves. The Vigilant shuddered once more. The crew held their ground. humanity would face the impossible. And they would endure. The entity had paused, intrigued, almost waiting. And now, Admiral Drax would discover that survival required more than courage. It required cunning, ingenuity, and the defiance that defined humanity itself. The bridge of the Vigilant was tense with anticipation. Admiral Drax paced slowly, letting his mind churn over every possibility. The entity outside was no conventional threat. It had no visible weapons, no propulsion system, no known weaknesses. And yet, every ship in the sector had vanished in its wake. Humanity had survived by understanding, by adapting, by turning peril into opportunity. Now, they would have to do the same. Lieutenant Kira's fingers danced over the console, pulling streams of data from the drones. The readings were bizarre. Energy levels fluctuated like heartbeat pulses, fluctuating in patterns that suggested intelligence, even curiosity. It wasn't just observing. They were probing for patterns, for behavior, for flaws. "Sir," Kara's voice quivered. "It's almost like it's learning from us. Every maneuver we take, every sensor ping we emit, it adapts. It's responding." Drax paused, letting her words settle. "It's responding." That was the key. It had power beyond comprehension, yet it was not omnipotent. It was learning, and every learner has limits. "Good," he said quietly. "Then we teach it. We show it what humans can do." The bridge crew looked at him, confusion and hope warring in their eyes. "Teach it, sir?" Kara asked. "Yes," Drax replied, voice steady. "We adapt, we deceive, we survive. That is the essence of humanity. That is what they will remember." He gestured toward the fleet matrix. "Prepare a simulated maneuver pattern. Have the drones follow it. Make it look like the Vigilant is moving in one direction, while we actually do something else." Kara hesitated. "You mean?" "Yes, we mislead it. Humans are clever when cornered. This is not about weapons, it's about wit. It learns, we exploit that." The crew moved swiftly, a mixture of fear and admiration in their eyes. In the face of the incomprehensible, Drax's decisiveness had turned paralyzing dread into action. Humanity had survived catastrophes by improvisation, by ingenuity. And now it would do the same. The drones streamed outward, following the false course plotted by the Vigilant. The entity's form pulsed, colors shifting faster as if it noticed the deception. For a moment, Drax feared they had underestimated it. But the longer the drones moved, the more the entity's focus narrowed on them, adjusting, reacting, but crucially, committing its attention to the decoys. "Sir, it's," Kara began, then paused, eyes wide. "It's focused on the drones, the decoys. It hasn't detected our true course yet." Drax allowed himself a grim smile. "Good. Humans survive by patience, observation, and cunning. We are not just flesh and bone. We are strategy. We are willpower made tangible. And that is why we endure." A subtle pulse ran through the ship, faint but insistent, almost like a heartbeat in the hull itself. Drax felt it deep in his chest. The entity was alive, aware, almost sentient. And yet it could be outwitted, not destroyed, but outwitted. That would have to be enough. "Admiral," Kara said, voice tight with excitement, "we can make it believe we're retreating. We can slip past it, or at least gain a strategic position." Drax nodded. The plan was daring, almost reckless, but they had no other choice. Humanity thrived on daring, on turning impossible odds into victory. "Do it," he ordered. "Every sensor, every drone, every maneuver feed it deception. Make it believe we are vulnerable, while we observe, calculate, and prepare." The crew obeyed, tension crackling like static in the air. The entity's pulses shifted, colors and patterns flowing in response to their tactics. Drax felt a subtle thrill. Humanity had been cornered before, yes, but in being cornered, they discovered brilliance, courage, and audacity that no enemy could anticipate. "Sir," Kara's voice trembled, "it's reacting unpredictably. It's adapting faster than expected. Almost frustrated." Drax's eyes narrowed at the viewport. Good. That is exactly what we want. Intelligence must learn. Humans must endure. And when it overreaches, we exploit that. Prepare the next stage. He paused, letting the thoughts sink into the crew. Fear was still there. It would always be there. But fear was no longer paralyzing. Humanity had faced extinction before, and each time they had endured through cleverness and courage. Now was no different. The simulated retreat unfolded perfectly. Drones feigned panic, weaving false patterns. The entity followed, pulsing, shifting, responding, but committing itself to the illusion. Drax's heart pounded. This was a dance with an intelligence beyond measure, yet humans had always danced when survival demanded it. A subtle vibration ran through the hull again, more insistent now. Like the entity was aware not only of the deception, but of the human's intent. Drax's mind raced. It's learning. Yes, but it has limits. Every mind, even one that spans galaxies, can only process so much. And humans are unpredictable. Prepare to execute realignment, he ordered. At my mark, we shift true course. Every move precise. Every calculation exact. Humanity does not stumble. Humanity does not falter. We survive. The entity's pulses grew erratic as the Vigilant adjusted. Colors flashed unpredictably, a silent storm of intelligence struggling to reconcile reality with the deception. Drax felt his chest tighten, not with fear, but with exhilaration. Humanity had turned the tables. Not by weapons, not by brute force, but by ingenuity and audacity. For a fleeting moment, he allowed himself to think of the countless generations who had fought and survived, who had whispered prayers under dying stars, who had built civilizations on the edge of impossibility. They were the ones who had made this possible. They were the reason humanity endured. Execute, Drax commanded. The Vigilant shifted, moving along its true course, leaving the decoys behind. The entity reacted, pulsing violently, twisting, adapting. But the humans had anticipated it. The ship glided through the void with precision born of desperation and brilliance. Kara exhaled, relief and awe blending in her voice. We did it. We slipped past. Drax held up a hand. Not yet. We endure, but the test continues. Intelligence can adapt. Humans must always anticipate. Humanity survives through vigilance, courage, and cunning. Remember that. The entity pulsed once, brightly, like a star collapsing and reforming in an instant. For the first time, Drax sensed acknowledgement, recognition, perhaps even respect. He turned to the crew. We have survived the first trial. But the void is vast, and the unknown is patient. Humanity has endured before, and we will endure now. Stand ready, observe, adapt, and never yield. The lights dimmed, pulsing in rhythm with the faint heartbeat of the entity outside. Drax felt the quiet certainty again, subtle, unspoken, like the whisper of a hand guiding them through darkness. Not luck, not chance. Something greater. Somewhere in the infinite dark, humanity had proven that cunning, courage, and willpower were more powerful than any weapon. The entity had learned. The humans had adapted. But the true test was yet to come, and it would strike not at their ships, but at their spirit. The Vigilant cut through the void, a solitary vessel against an endless expanse of black. Its hull shimmered faintly under the ambient light of distant stars, but nothing in the cosmos could mask the presence looming, just beyond sensor range. Admiral Drax stood at the observation deck, jaw set, eyes narrowing as he watched the entity vast, impossible, unknowable shift and pulse in response to every maneuver. Lieutenant Kara's voice trembled through the comms. Sir, it's... Drax held up a hand. He did not need to hear her. He felt it, the subtle pressure in the hull, the almost tactile presence in the void, as though the entity itself was aware of every heartbeat, every thought aboard the ship. It had tracked the decoys, it had reacted, and now it had adapted. This is it, he murmured. The real test. The entity shifted, stretching its impossibly vast form around the Vigilant. Colors twisted and shimmered, forming patterns that hurt the eyes and tugged at the mind. Drax felt a nausea rise in his stomach, not from fear, but from the overwhelming awareness that they were being weighed. Every human aboard, every decision, every instinct. "Sir," Kara's voice was almost a whisper. "It's scanning every system, every reading, every life sign. It knows our crew, our stress levels, our intentions. It understands us." Drax's jaw tightened. "Then we give it something to understand." He clenched his fists. Humanity had survived extinction before. Humanity had defied the void, defied death, defied tyrants and monsters alike. And now, humanity would survive this. Not with weapons, not with luck, but with ingenuity, courage, and the refusal to yield. "Prepare all countermeasures," he ordered. "Every maneuver, every sensor, every channel record it. We will survive this test, and we will make it understand that humanity cannot be erased." The crew moved with tense precision, executing the orders like a well-oiled machine. Fear was present, yes, but so was determination. Humans thrived under pressure, and now, the Vigilant became the embodiment of that resilience. Outside, the entity pulsed. The void itself seemed to ripple as it expanded, its immense form twisting in ways that defied geometry. It reached toward them, not physically, not yet, but in the form of energy and intent. Drax felt it in his chest, in his bones, in the very marrow of the ship. This was no longer observation. This was interaction. And it was dangerous. "Sir," Kara whispered, It's responding to our maneuvers. The entity, whatever it is frustrated. Its pulses are irregular, chaotic. It's learning, yes, but..." "Good," Drax interrupted, voice firm. "Frustration is a weakness. Adaptation is not perfection. We exploit what we can. Humanity survives because we are unpredictable." He gestured to the tactical console. "Initiate vector realignment. All decoys follow the false course." The Vigilant moves true. Every drone transmits false readings. "Make it believe it has us cornered." The bridge hummed with focused energy. Crew members moved with a combination of fear and awe, knowing that the slightest error could mean annihilation. Yet every human aboard understood that survival depended on more than technology. It depended on wit, on courage, on the ability to defy expectations. The entity pulsed violently, reacting to the deception. Colors shifted so rapidly they became almost invisible, blending into the void. Drax felt the vibrations through the hull intensify. It was aware, not just of the Vigilant's position, but of intent, of the subtle calculations guiding every human decision. "Stand by," Drax said, voice low. "We execute on my mark. Humanity does not stumble. Humanity does not falter. We survive through cleverness, through courage, through defiance." The ship shifted silently, sliding along a vector designed to evade the entity's focus. The decoys continued their false pattern, drawing the attention of the vast intelligence. For a moment, the entity pulsed erratically, almost as if struggling to reconcile the illusion with reality. "Sir, it's focusing on the decoys. Our true course is undetected," Kara said, awe threading her voice. Drax allowed a grim smile. "Good. Humans endure because we anticipate, adapt, and act. Never underestimate ingenuity born of necessity." But the relief was brief. The entity reacted with a surge of energy, pulsing outward in a wave that rippled through the void. Drax felt the hull vibrate violently. Systems flickered, sensors overloaded, and then a silence. Not calm, but a waiting silence, pregnant with potential. "Admiral," Kara's voice quivered. "It's pausing. It's observing." Drax nodded slowly. The pause was meaningful. It meant recognition. It meant intelligence. It meant that humanity's defiance had registered, but it also meant danger. The entity was patient, and patience in the void was measured in millennia. They were still under its scrutiny, still being tested. He closed his eyes briefly. Somewhere deep in the silent pulse of space, he felt something subtle, a sense of order, a sense of purpose, almost like a guiding hand shaping events from afar. Not luck, not coincidence. Something greater. "Record everything," he ordered. "Every movement, every pulse, every reaction. Humanity survives through memory, through understanding. Let the entity remember that we are not just flesh and bone, we are willpower incarnate." The crew worked in tense silence. Outside, the entity continued to pulse, a living storm of energy and intent. It had adapted, yes, but the humans had anticipated adaptation. They had exploited it. And in doing so, they demonstrated the essence of what made them human: ingenuity, courage, defiance, and the refusal to yield. Drax turned to the observation deck once more. The entity loomed beyond the hull, immense and unknowable. But for the first time, he sensed something resembling acknowledgement in its presence, recognition, perhaps even respect. "Stand ready," he said. "The true trial is coming. Humanity has passed the first challenge, but the void is patient and the unknown is relentless. We endure because we must. We fight because we cannot do otherwise. And we will survive because humanity remembers." The subtle hum through the hull intensified, almost like a heartbeat in time with their own. Drax felt it resonate with something deep within him, a reminder that humans had survived when all odds were against them, that ingenuity and courage could carve paths through the impossible. The Vigilant remained alone, yet unbroken, facing an intelligence beyond reckoning. And somewhere in the infinite dark, the entity waited, watching, learning, and remembering. Drax exhaled slowly. The test had begun, and humanity would meet it head-on. The entity had paused, intrigued, aware, but the humans had survived the first trial. Now the void would strike more directly, and Admiral Drax would be forced to gamble everything on the ingenuity and courage that defined his species. The Vigilant drifted in the void, solitary and unbroken. Admiral Drax stood on the observation deck, eyes locked on the entity. It pulsed and shimmered like living starlight, its form impossible to describe, colors that had no names, shapes that bent perception itself. Every pulse was deliberate, measured, intelligent. It was aware of them, not merely observing, but anticipating, probing, and waiting for humanity to reveal its essence. "Sir," Lieutenant Kira's voice quivered over the com. "It's intensifying its pulses. The energy readings, our hull is registering microstrains, systems are holding." Barely. Drax ran a hand over the railing, letting the vibrations from the hull course into his body. This is the challenge, he thought. The entity was not merely testing them, it was pressing, squeezing, pressing against the limits of survival, the boundaries of courage. And humans thrived under pressure. They had survived death by instinct, by calculation, by stubborn audacity. "Prepare vector countermeasures," he ordered. "Not to fight, but to survive. We need space to maneuver. Every sensor, every drone, every output, push it, mislead it, manipulate its perception." The crew moved quickly, a mixture of fear and awe driving precision. Drones emitted false readings, projected decoy signatures, and shifted in patterns meant to confuse the entity's vast intelligence. The Vigilant itself followed a course calculated to mislead and endure. Humans were never perfect, but they were relentless. Outside, the entity pulsed brighter, a living storm of energy and thought. Its shape shifted, folding in on itself, then expanding, like a mind too vast to comprehend condensed into visible form. Drax felt the hull vibrate, subtle at first, then sharply, like the entity was testing limits, like it was reaching for them, not to destroy, but to understand, to measure, to weigh the worth of humanity itself. "Sir, it's responding faster than anticipated." "It's adapting to our decoys," Kira said, eyes wide. "Good," Drax replied, voice steady. Adaptation is predictable. Predictability is exploitable. Humans survive not by following patterns. They survive by creating new ones. That is our edge. He turned to the tactical console, calculating. Every human instinct, every historical lesson, every desperate gamble humanity had ever made surged in his mind. This was not a fight for victory, not yet. It was a fight for survival, and survival depended on ingenuity. Initiate the second phase, he commanded. Realign the ship, vector decoys away, execute deceptive oscillations. Make it commit to its assumptions. Humanity thrives on unpredictability. The Vigilant shifted, gliding through the void with a precision born of necessity. Drones wove complex patterns, each pulse of false data a lure, baiting the entity into committing its vast attention to what was not real. For a moment, the void itself seemed to pulse with tension, the entity reacting with erratic flashes, struggling to reconcile its perception with the reality of human deception. "Sir," Kara whispered, "it's escalating. The pulse is stronger, almost targeted at us like it's testing our endurance directly." Drax nodded, jaw tight. The first trial had been observation, the second was intimidation. And now came direct pressure, like a predator testing the limits of its prey. Humanity had faced predators before. They had been outgunned, outnumbered, outmatched in countless ways. Yet they had endured because their strength was not only physical or technological, it was spiritual, creative, and unyielding. He turned to the crew. "Hold your positions. Every human aboard this ship is a testament to the ingenuity, courage, and stubbornness of our species. We will not break, we will endure. And we will make them remember who we are." The entity pulsed again, and this time the light reached deep into the observation deck, brushing against their very minds. Drax felt a weight, not physical, but mental, a pressure that tested resolve, focus, and spirit. The void seemed alive, yet the human stood resolute. Fear was present, yes, but determination burned brighter. "Sir," Kara said, almost in awe, "it's reading our intent, every move, every hesitation. It's aware." Drax exhaled slowly. "Then let it learn. Let it see that humans endure not because we are perfect, but because we refuse to yield. Humanity survives because we act when others falter, because we think when others panic, because we believe when others despair." The entity's pulses intensified again. The hull vibrated sharply, systems flaring. It was testing the Vigilant, pressing to see whether humans would crumble under impossible odds. Drax felt every heartbeat as if it were magnified, a resonance of fear, courage, and raw human will. "Prepare to deploy the adaptive matrix," he ordered. "Not weapons, not attacks. Shields, decoys, vectors, every system must think for itself. Humans are unpredictable. Technology can extend that unpredictability." The crew moved with synchronized precision, executing commands as the entity's pulses roared like distant thunder. Drones twisted through the void, transmitting false signatures, weaving illusions of fleet movement and vulnerability. The Vigilant itself shifted along a hidden vector, slipping past the focus of the entity without alerting it. "Sir, it's reacting violently," Kara said, almost frustrated. "Its energy pulses faster, irregular, chaotic." Drax allowed himself a grim smile. "Exactly as planned. Intelligence can adapt, but it can also overreach. Humanity survives by exploiting limits, by finding gaps in the pattern, by daring where others hesitate." He stepped closer to the viewport. Outside, the entity twisted, flaring, pulsing, and folding in impossible dimensions. Yet, for the first time, Drax sensed acknowledgement, recognition, perhaps even respect. Not luck, not coincidence. Someone, something, is testing humanity, and we are proving ourselves. "Stand ready," Drax said, voice firm. "The void is patient. The unknown is relentless, but humanity is relentless too. Every pulse, every decision, every act of courage, this is how we endure. This is how we survive. This is how humans are remembered. The Vigilant continued its silent glide through the void, alone yet unbroken, facing an intelligence beyond comprehension. And somewhere in the dark, the entity paused, observing, calculating, and learning. Drax felt the subtle presence again, not of luck, but of something greater, guiding them through the storm of the unknown. Humanity would face the next wave, and when it came, they would meet it not with fear, but with ingenuity, courage, and the unbreakable will that had carried them across stars and centuries. The entity's pulse slowed, deliberate, measured, almost contemplative. For the first time, Drax sensed that the next encounter would be more than a test. It would be a confrontation, a collision of wills between humanity and something beyond reckoning. The void waited, and so did humanity. The entity had tested them, pressed them, and adapted, but humanity had endured through ingenuity and will. The next move would demand more than cunning. It would demand audacity, courage, and a choice that could change everything. The Vigilant drifted silently through the void, a solitary sentinel against incomprehensible enormity. Beyond the viewport, the entity stretched and twisted, a living storm of light and thought, testing every pulse of human courage aboard the ship. Admiral Drax stood at the observation deck, jaw set, eyes narrowing against the impossible spectacle. "Sir," Lieutenant Kara's voice trembled through the com. "It's focusing now. Not just observing, the pulses are directed at us, almost probing our systems, our hull, our minds." Drax exhaled slowly. "It is aware. It is measuring. And now it will act." He turned to the bridge crew. "Humanity survives because we anticipate the impossible and act anyway. We are clever. We are relentless. And we never, ever yield." Kara's fingers hovered over the controls. "Sir, its energy pulses our shields are holding, but just barely. If it escalates, then we escalate smarter," Drax said, voice firm. "Not brute force. Not weapons alone. Intelligence and willpower are arms now. Humanity thrives on audacity." He gestured to the tactical console. "Prepare the adaptive field. Deploy every countermeasure to misdirect, mislead, and manipulate. The entity expects fear. Give it ingenuity instead." Drones streamed outward like shimmering threads, weaving false signals across every spectrum. The Vigilant shifted subtly along a hidden vector, a move designed to exploit every assumption the entity had built from prior observations. Outside, the entity pulsed violently, ripples of energy cascading through the void, pressing against the hull like the weight of a planet. Drax felt the vibration deep in his chest. This was the first direct attack, not of destruction, but of overwhelming force, testing endurance and spirit alike. "Sir," Kara's voice was taut with tension. "It's responding to the deception. Faster, chaotic, almost confused." Drax allowed himself a grim smile. "Exactly what we needed. Humanity survives by being unpredictable," he murmured. "We adapt when others falter. We act when others hesitate. We endure because we refuse to yield," the entity flared. A sudden burst of light and energy that made the bridge glow in impossible colors. Systems shivered under the pressure. Drones twisted in the void, their signals now interwoven with the ship's own subtle maneuvers. It was a ballet of perception, a contest not of weapons, but of mind and will. "Now," Drax commanded, "execute the realignment. All vectors true, decoys remain false. We exploit its focus. Humanity does not flee. Humanity strikes with ingenuity." The Vigilant shifted sharply, a subtle glide that carried it past the entity's center of focus. The energy pulses lashed outward, but they struck only the decoys. The entity's form twisted, colors flashing like a storm in motion, signaling awareness of the deception. But it had committed, and that commitment created a margin for survival. "Sir, it's pulling back almost," Kara whispered, astonishment threading her voice. Drax's jaw tightened. "Not retreating, learning, calculating, and we use that. He ran a hand over his face, feeling the strain of command settle into grim determination. Humanity had survived the impossible before disease, famine, tyrants, extinction-level events. They survived because they were clever, empathetic, and unyielding. Now the survival of the Vigilant depended on the same qualities. "Prepare the second strike of ingenuity," he said. "We are not fighting it with weapons. We fight it with human will, human creativity, human audacity. It must learn that humans are not prey. We are not passive. We are relentless." Outside, the entity pulsed again, brighter this time, focusing on the illusion of the fleet. Drax felt the hull hum, the energy pressing, testing, pushing. But the Vigilant held. The human mind was the weapon now, the ingenuity of centuries distilled into a single act of defiance. "Sir, its attention is fully on the decoys," Kara said, awe and disbelief in her voice. "We have a window. We can maneuver true course undetected." Drax nodded slowly. "Then we take it. Humanity survives not by waiting for opportunity, we create it. All hands, execute the plan." The Vigilant shifted with precision, slipping through the void in a vector hidden from the entity's focus. The decoys remained, pulsing and twisting, drawing attention. The entity's light flared violently, sensing but misjudging, and in that instant, the humans moved past the edge of comprehension. Drax allowed himself a breath, not of relief, but of resolve. Humanity had endured the first direct test. They had survived not through firepower or technology alone, but through cleverness, courage, and willpower, the essence of what made them human. "Observe and record everything," he ordered. "Not for victory, but for memory. Humanity endures because we remember, because we adapt, because we act when all seems lost." The void pulsed quietly, the entity twisting, folding, and pulsing a being beyond reckoning, yet learning from the humans it could not understand. The crew exhaled as the first true contact subsided, leaving the Vigilant battered but unbroken. Drax stood at the viewport, chest tight, feeling a quiet pulse of awe. Somewhere in the infinite dark, a vast intelligence had paused, studied, and acknowledged humanity's spirit. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it was real. Not luck, not coincidence. Someone, something has guided us to this moment, and humanity has endured it. "Stand ready," Drax said, voice low but firm. "The trial is not over. The void waits, the unknown tests, and we will answer. Humanity survives because we act, because we endure, because we are relentless." Outside, the entity pulsed one last time before receding slightly, almost contemplative, leaving the Vigilant to glide through the silent void. But Drax knew this was only the beginning. The next phase would demand more courage, more ingenuity, more humanity distilled into action. Somewhere in the dark, the humans aboard the Vigilant whispered silent vows, unspoken prayers, and quiet declarations. "We survive. We endure. We will not be forgotten." The first confrontation had ended. Humanity had proven cunning and resilience, but the entity had not withdrawn. It had learned, adapted, and now it would escalate. The true test of courage, ingenuity, and spirit was yet to come. The Vigilant shuddered violently as the entity intensified its focus. Outside the viewport, the incomprehensible storm of color and energy rippled and folded in ways that made the stars themselves seem like illusions. Every vibration of the hull, every flicker of light, carried the subtle weight of deliberate intent and awareness that pressed against every human aboard the ship. Admiral Drax stood at the observation deck, jaw clenched, heart hammering with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. The first confrontation had been a test of cunning. This was a trial of spirit, of resolve, of the unyielding essence that defined humanity. "Sir," Lieutenant Kira's voice was tight with tension. "It's focusing everything now. Shields are straining. Hull integrity dropping. If it continues..." Drax didn't finish the thought. He already knew. Humanity's survival had never been guaranteed. It had always been a battle of wit, courage, and will. And now, the Vigilant would be pushed to the very edge. "Prepare the adaptive matrix," he ordered. "Every system on maximum, every decoy active, but this time, we must do more. Humanity survives through action, not waiting. We act now." The bridge crew moved swiftly, hands steady despite the tremor of fear in the air. Drones launched into the void, weaving deceptive patterns designed to draw the entity's focus. The Vigilant executed a series of subtle maneuvers, invisible to all but the most advanced sensors, exploiting every nuance of the entity's perception. Outside, the entity pulsed, brighter and faster, like a star collapsing and reforming in impossible dimensions. Its form twisted violently, reacting to the human's maneuvers, but now its energy lashes reached directly for the hull, threatening to tear through metal and mind alike. "Sir," Kara's voice broke, It's targeting us now. Every pulse focused, precise, destructive." Drax's eyes narrowed. Good. Destruction was not the end. It was a challenge, a test of ingenuity. "Hold your positions," he said firmly. "We will survive." Humanity endures through courage, through audacity, through refusing to yield. This is what we are made for. He moved to the tactical console, running calculations faster than any crew member could follow. Every move, every decoy, every pulse of energy had to be anticipated and exploited. One miscalculation would mean annihilation, not just for the Vigilant, but for humanity's last hope in this sector. The entity's pulses struck the decoys with devastating force. Sparks of energy lanced across space, obliterating drone after drone in brilliant flashes. But the humans had anticipated this. The decoys were expendable. Their true course, the ship's hidden trajectory, remained untouched. "Admiral," Kara whispered, awe threading her words. We're still undetected." Somehow, Drax allowed a grim smile. Humanity survived because it was unpredictable. It survived because courage and ingenuity could outmatch brute force. And now, at the edge of annihilation, they would demonstrate that truth in its purest form. "Now," he commanded, "execute the final maneuver." All energy focused into the adaptive field. Every system working as one. Humanity does not yield, we define the terms of survival. The Vigilant shuddered as its systems strained, energy coursing through every circuit, every conduit. Shields glowed brightly, projecting a complex matrix of light and energy designed to confuse, mislead, and survive. The entity pulsed violently, but the human's ingenuity held it at bay. Drax's eyes scanned the viewport. He saw the entity twisting and folding in ways that suggested awareness, intelligence, frustration. It had not been defeated. It had been engaged, challenged, made to recognize that humans were not simply prey. "Sir." Kara's voice was barely audible. "It's pausing, almost observing. It's assessing us." Drax nodded slowly. The pause was meaningful. Recognition, respect, understanding. Humanity had endured the impossible, survived when annihilation seemed certain. And in doing so, they had communicated something the entity could not ignore, that humans were not to be erased, they were to be reckoned with. He turned to the crew. "We are the last fleet. We are the last hope in this sector. Humanity survives because we act, because we endure, because we refuse to yield. Remember this. Every human aboard this ship is a testament to the spirit that defines our species. Hold steady. Stand ready. And above all, survive." The entity pulsed one final time, a massive radiant wave that swept across the void. Energy struck the hull, systems flaring and sparking, yet the adaptive field held. The Vigilant trembled violently, but it endured. Drax felt a quiet presence in the moment, subtle and unspoken, like a hand guiding them through darkness. Not luck, not coincidence. Something greater. Something that had shaped humanity across millennia. the entity withdrew slightly, its pulsations slowing, colors folding into themselves. It had tested, pressed, and threatened, but it had not destroyed. Humanity had survived the edge of annihilation. And in surviving, they had proven not just their cleverness, but their courage, their defiance, and their indomitable will. Drax exhaled, letting the tension ebb slightly, though he did not relax completely. The trial was not over. But humanity had spoken through action. They had survived when all odds were against them, somewhere in the vastness of the void. A silent acknowledgement had been made. Humans endure, and they will continue to endure. No matter the darkness, the crew looked around at one another. Exhausted but unbroken, their courage tempered by fire. Their ingenuity tested to the extreme. Humanity had survived the brink, and in doing so, they had carved a place for themselves even in the face of the incomprehensible. Drax turned back to the viewport, eyes narrowed against the glowing storm. "The test continues," he said quietly. "But we endure. Humanity survives. And we will meet whatever comes next with courage, ingenuity, and spirit." The void pulsed, silent now, almost contemplative, leaving the Vigilant to glide through the darkness. The crew knew the truth. The entity had not withdrawn out of mercy. It had paused, observed, learned, and now humanity's true reckoning was approaching. The entity had tested their courage, ingenuity, and will. Humanity had survived the edge of annihilation, but the final confrontation awaited. And Admiral Drax would have to prove, beyond any doubt, that human spirit could stand against the unknowable itself. The void stretched endlessly, silent except for the subtle vibrations running through the hull of the Vigilant. Outside, the entity waited, a living storm of unimaginable light and intelligence. Every pulse it sent carried intent, awareness, and judgment. For the humans aboard the ship, the moment of reckoning had arrived. There was no hiding, no maneuvering, no clever illusions left. It was time to confront the unknowable and survive. Admiral Drax stood at the observation deck, his gaze unwavering. Every system aboard the ship hummed in tense harmony, the adaptive matrix shimmering faintly around the hull. He felt the presence again, subtle, almost imperceptible, the quiet assurance that humanity had endured before, that they could endure now. Not luck, not chance, but deliberate guidance. "Crew," he said, voice low but resonant, "we have survived impossible odds. We have endured annihilation, outwitted the incomprehensible, and proven that human will cannot be erased. Now we face the final moment. We do not fight as prey. We fight as humans, relentless, ingenious, and defiant. Humanity survives because we act, because we endure, because we remember." Lieutenant Kara nodded, fingers steady on the controls, despite the tremor of tension. "Sir, the entity. It's focusing directly on us, everything. Hull, shields, systems, our minds. It's testing us fully." Drax exhaled slowly, letting the words sink. "Good, let it test. Humanity is never passive. We define the terms of survival. Every pulse, every breath, every choice, it is ours. We endure." The entity pulsed violently, compressing space around the Vigilant, folding light and perception into impossible dimensions. The ship trembled, systems straining under the immense pressure. Outside, colors swirled and twisted with impossible speed, bending the void into patterns the human eye could barely comprehend. And yet, the humans remained resolute. Fear was present, but it did not define them. Courage did. Ingenuity did. "Will did. Deploy the final adaptive sequence," Drax ordered. "We are not attacking. We are not fleeing. We are asserting our existence. Every system, every decoy, every signal focus on unpredictability, ingenuity, and willpower. Humanity survives through ingenuity, not weapons alone." The Vigilant shuddered as energy flared across the hull, systems aligning, decoys weaving patterns so complex they became almost like thought itself. Outside, the entity pulsed, twisted, and then, astonishingly, recoiled slightly. It was not retreat, it was acknowledgement. Recognition. The intelligence that had erased fleets now paused, learning not just the movements of a single vessel, but the essence of humanity itself. Drax felt a profound quiet in the moment, subtle and almost sacred. Somewhere in the vastness of the void, beyond comprehension, there was a presence, a whisper of order, balance, something guiding the improbable survival of humans through impossible circumstances. Not luck, not chance, but intent. Sir, it's pulsing differently, Kara whispered, almost like acknowledgement. It knows we are alive, that we survived. Drax's jaw tightened. It is learning. But more importantly, it is remembering. Humanity survives because we remember, because we endure, because we act when all else fails. That is our essence. That is why we are human. He turned to the crew, voice firm and resolute. We have faced annihilation. We have stared into the unknowable and endured. We are clever, courageous, and relentless. Humanity does not yield. Humanity prevails. And that is what the entity, the void, the unknown, will remember. The entity pulsed again, vast and radiant, and in that instant, the ship and the crew felt a quiet, almost reverent calm. The relentless pressure eased. The impossible intelligence seemed satisfied, or at least contemplative. It had tested, pressed, and measured. Humanity had endured, and now it had left a mark. Drax exhaled slowly, shoulders loosening for the first time since the encounter began. The crew mirrored him, tension giving way to awe. Humanity had survived the unknowable, not through firepower or luck, but through ingenuity, courage, and the refusal to yield. Record everything, Drax said. Every pulse, every signal, every decision. Humanity survives because we endure, because we act, because we remember. Let the record show, we faced the impossible and we survived. A subtle vibration ran through the hull, faint but steady, almost like a heartbeat. Drax looked out at the entity one last time. Its pulses were slower now, folding inward, as if digesting the encounter. Somewhere in the dark, he felt the quiet presence again, the unseen intelligence, the subtle hand, the whisper of order that had guided them through the trial. Not luck, not chance, he murmured. Someone, something, wanted us to survive. The crew stood silently, absorbing the magnitude of what had transpired. They had faced an intelligence beyond reckoning, and yet they remained unbroken. Humanity had survived through courage, ingenuity, and spirit. And somewhere in the infinite dark, the entity's final pulse faded, not as annihilator, but as witness. Humanity had proven itself worthy of remembrance. Drax allowed himself a quiet smile. We endure, we remember. And in doing so, we survive. The Vigilant glided through the void, battered but unbroken, a solitary testament to the strength of human will. And in the stillness of the cosmos, a subtle, almost imperceptible presence lingered, a quiet assurance that some ghosts fight for the living, that some forces of creation watch over those who dare, who endure, who remember. The unknown had been faced. Humanity had triumphed. And somewhere, far beyond comprehension, the universe remembered them too. The entity had erased fleets before, but humanity endured through courage, ingenuity, and spirit. The unknown had tested them, and in surviving, humans proved that will, intelligence, and defiance are their greatest weapons. Some ghosts fight for the living, and humanity would never be forgotten.